The business faculty classroom at Seoul University always felt like a tiny arena, a quiet battleground for two of the most prominent names in their year, Jungkook and Park Yin. Both were equally outstanding, smart, wealthy, and admittedly, good-looking. But when it came to their relationship, that was a completely different story. Yin, are you sure you're using that template? Hannah asked, squinting at her friend's laptop screen. If Jungkook sees it, he's gonna make another comment. Yin sighed, fingers flying across the keyboard. I don't care, he's not the professor anyway. She had barely finished saying that when a familiar voice chimed in from behind her. Oh, I'm touched. Talking about me again, huh? Yin turned around out of reflex. Jungkook stood right behind her, expression calm, but his eyes glinted with mischief. Next to him, Yoonwoo rolled his eyes, clearly used to his friend's antics. Do you have a radar or something? Every time I talk, you show up, Yin shot back, annoyed. Pure coincidence, Jungkook replied casually, leaning closer to peek at her screen. The font's a bit too flashy, but it suits you. What's that supposed to mean? Yin raised an eyebrow. Loud, he said with a smirk, but somehow still interesting. Hannah quickly covered her mouth, trying not to laugh, while Yin's cheeks started to burn. Jungkook, seriously, don't you ever get tired of teasing me every day? Nope, it's fun, Jungkook said easily. You're so easy to annoy, it's like my morning entertainment. The room, which had been filled with chatter, suddenly went quiet as the professor entered. Everyone hurried back to their seats, except Jungkook, who casually pulled his chair to sit right behind Yin. Do you have to sit there? Yin muttered without turning around. So I can hear you mumbling from a safe distance, he whispered back. Yin stared straight ahead, trying to focus on the lecture and ignore him. There was no point in reacting, that would only make him worse. But a few minutes later, a folded note landed on her desk. In neat handwriting, it said, "You look cute when you're annoyed. Don't change the font. I already like it." Yin bit back a smile, trying to keep her face straight. She quickly scribbled back, "Cute, my ass. Pay attention to class." The note found its way back to Jungkook. He read it, then rested his chin on his hand. A small smile tugged at his lips, not the usual teasing one, but something quieter, softer. Meanwhile, up front, Yin pretended to take notes diligently, though her mind was a mess of numbers, words, and the sound of a quiet chuckle coming from behind her. A few weeks later. It had been a few weeks since that day. The business faculty classroom was always noisy before class, but for Jungkook, the easiest sound to pick out was Yin's laugh. In the front row, he watched her sit in a small circle with Hannah, Nari, and Minji. Yin always leaned forward a little, the posture of someone who listened more than she spoke. His eyes kept watching closely, quietly observing what was really going on there. To most people, they looked like the perfect friend group, four pretty, popular girls who were always together. But the more Jungkook paid attention, the more something felt off. Yin was always the center of it. He saw her treat her friends at the cafeteria. He saw her quietly prepare gifts whenever one of them had a birthday. She was the one who saved them whenever assignments came up, letting them copy her work, even doing entire group projects alone without much complaint. Why is she always the one trying the hardest? Jungkook wondered once. He noticed all of it and understood what was going on, but he never said anything to Yin. He didn't want to hurt her feelings. Instead, like always, his attention came out the wrong way. Little teases, throwaway comments, like the only way he knew how to be close was by making Yin roll her eyes. One day, Yin went to campus, pushing through the pain. Cramps squeezed her stomach, her breaths were short, and her fingers felt cold. It was the first day of her period. She sat up straight, trying to act normal even though her stomach hurt too much to sit comfortably. Sleepy? Or thinking about me? Jungkook leaned in and whispered. There was a crooked smile on his lips, the kind that usually earned him a snarky comeback from Yin. Yin turned to him, her eyes sharp and heavy. Can you shut up? Don't bother me. I'm really not in the mood to joke right now. Jungkook raised an eyebrow. Whoa, serious? You usually just pout. He tapped the corner of Yin's desk. Tap, tap, that tiny rhythm that had always annoyed her. What's up with you today? That was it. Her fuse burned out. Can you stop messing with me? I'm done. I'm tired. You think everyone enjoys your annoying little bits? Jungkook flinched, but Yin kept going. Her voice cracked at the end. No wonder you don't have many friends. The only one who can stand you is Yoonwoo, because you're freaking annoying. Silence fell. Chairs seemed to scoot back an invisible step. Even Yoonwoo, who looked like he was about to laugh, stopped himself. The air felt different this time. The smile fell off Jungkook's face. He opened his mouth, then shut it again. The vein in his jaw stood out. Yin knew her words had cut. She saw it in Jungkook's dimmed eyes. But she had no space to regret it. Her stomach already had her on edge. Jungkook finally turned away and went back to his seat, where Yoonwoo watched him with concern. "You good, bro?" Jungkook only nodded. After that, the quiet stretched. From that day on, there were no little notes on Yin's desk. No whispers in the middle of lectures. Jungkook sat farther away, or rather, he made himself stay away. 3 weeks later. That morning at Yin's house felt different. She came down to the dining room for breakfast, and her father greeted his only daughter by singing, "Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday," in a scratchy, off-key voice. Yin got teary and ran to hug him tight. "Thank you, Dad," she said, eyes shining. He hugged her back and kissed the top of her head. Her mother came over, kissed Yin's forehead, and set down a small plate with toast and strawberries. "There'll be a surprise tonight. We'll celebrate at home, okay?" she said, eyes twinkling. Yin headed to campus with a light step. "My friends will remember. There has to be something, like all the things I've always done for them," she thought, smiling to herself. Hannah, Nari, and Minji were already there. No greetings, no smiles that lasted more than 2 seconds. If anything, they felt a little cold. Yin forced herself to think positive. Maybe they're pulling a prank. The bell rang. Class went on like normal. The clock hands crawled forward. Eventually, the lecture ended and students trickled out. Only a few stayed behind. Jungkook and Yoonwoo were still in the corner with their gym bags. They had basketball practice later. Minji stood up with a smile. "Happy birthday, Yin." She lifted a small cake, no candle, white cream with a single cherry. Minji, Hannah, and Nari started singing happy birthday. Warmth washed over Yin, melting like sugar. "Thank you," she whispered, swallowing her emotion. She leaned forward to cut the cake, and then the sweet scent of cream filled her nose, clinging to her eyelashes. The world reflected back at her in broken fragments. Desks, shoes, the startled faces of a few classmates. Yin stood frozen, her breath catching somewhere between humiliation and shock. Her entire face was now smeared with frosting, making her look almost like a clown. "What the hell?" Her voice cracked up from her chest. The laughter faded. Hannah shrugged, still grinning. "Relax, it's just a joke." "A joke?" Yin stared at them one by one, cream dripping down her chin and staining her collar. "You did that to humiliate me. Call it what it is. Don't wrap it in the word joke." "Girl, you're just being dramatic," Nari muttered, bored. "You're no fun, so sensitive." "What?" Yin choked on the word. "You're way too sensitive," Minji added. The words felt like a door slamming shut. The three of them turned around and walked away. Just like that. Over. Yin was left standing there, her breath still trembling, the ruined cake lying in pieces on the floor. A few classmates who were still around looked worried. Dalmi walked over with tissues in hand. Her fingers trembled, but her voice was gentle. "Yin, are you okay? Here, let me help." Yin took the tissues, drew a heavy breath, and started wiping the cream off her face while Dalmi helped. Back on his seat, Jungkook leaned against the backrest, jaw clenched, fists tight on his thighs. "I'm going to the bathroom," Yin said quietly. Dalmi offered to come along, but Yin shook her head. "I just want to be alone." Campus was thinning out. The restroom was empty now. Only the faint buzz of a neon light and the distant drip of water echoed through the space. The long mirror reflected a version of Yin that felt shattered. She turned on the tap. Cold water ran over the leftover cream, mascara sliding off into dark streaks beneath her eyes. She scrubbed her cheeks, forehead, jawline, harder and faster, like her skin could absorb all the words that had just slapped her. "Why am I always the one trying? Why am I always the one laughing the loudest so everyone else stays comfortable?" Her tears finally fell, but they went unnoticed, hidden beneath the water, as she kept washing her face nonstop. Footsteps entered, soles clicking on the tiles. Yin didn't turn. "I'm fine, Dalmi," she said, voice a little cracked as she tried to sound steady. There was no reply. She lifted her head slowly. In the mirror, it wasn't Dalmi, it was Jungkook. He stood right beside her. His face was tight, but in his eyes, something had cracked. Worry, guilt, and a hurt he'd been carrying for 3 weeks. No teasing, no crooked smile. Jungkook pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, navy fabric with small checkered squares. His hand rose halfway, then stopped in the air. He didn't push it on her. "Can I?" His voice was low, a little rough. Yin looked at the handkerchief, then back at the mirror. In the reflection, she saw 2 people who usually sparred, now stripped of their armor. "I didn't come to joke," Jungkook said softly, "and that wasn't funny." Yin turned off the tap. The buzz of the light grew clearer. She reached for the handkerchief, slow, hesitant. Their fingertips almost touched, a quick spark that didn't hurt. It just made something obvious. There'd been a long pause between them. "Why are you here?" Yin asked, voice husky, eyes still on the mirror. Jungkook held his breath for a second. "Because no one gets to do that to you." He swallowed, then added, more honest than before, "including me." The words hung there, not flowery, not sweet, just true. Yin pressed the handkerchief to her cheek. The familiar hint of his cologne rose with the fabric. She took a long breath. In the mirror, she saw Jungkook dip his head a little, like he was apologizing for all the things he hadn't said. "Are you still mad at me?" Jungkook asked, barely above a whisper. Yin didn't answer right away. "I'm trying not to be," she said at last, "but I'm tired." Jungkook nodded, swallowing back everything else he wanted to say. "If you need, I can just stay quiet, or I can listen." There was an awkwardness to the way he offered, but sincere. Yin closed her eyes, her shoulders rising and falling slowly as she tried to steady her breathing. When she finally spoke, her voice came out hoarse. I didn't know they'd actually do that," she whispered, leaving me there with cake all over my face while laughing like I'm some clown. "I've always celebrated their birthdays, bought them gifts, and nothing like this ever happened to them. But to me, they did that." Her words came out in broken pieces, an unintentional outpouring of frustration, because Jungkook was the only one standing beside her at that moment. Jungkook didn't interrupt. He just stood there quietly, listening. Yin drew in a shaky breath, held it, then let it go. Her tears started falling again. She quickly wiped them away with the back of her hand, but her voice no longer trembled like before. "I'm tired," she admitted softly, "tired of always being the one who tries to make everyone else comfortable." "If you're tired," Jungkook said gently, "then stop. Don't force yourself anymore." For a few seconds, the only sound was the faint hum of the neon light. They just stood there in that silence, not awkward, but calm. When Yin finally felt her breathing return to normal, she looked at her reflection in the mirror, wiped her cheeks one last time, and exhaled. I should go home," she murmured. They stepped out of the restroom. The hallway was quiet and nearly empty. Jungkook noticed the front of Yin's blouse, still stained with bits of cream, damp from water splashes. Without hesitation, he took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "Here," he said simply, "wear it so the stains don't show." Yin blinked, glancing down at the jacket's warmth covering her. She didn't refuse. "Thanks, Jungkook," for the first time. Those words came out of her clearly. No sarcasm, no walls. Jungkook only nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Yin started walking away, but instinctively, Jungkook reached out and caught her wrist gently, without force. When Yin turned to face him, his eyes were soft. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, his voice low. "For 3 weeks ago, I pissed you off. I shouldn't have done that." Yin was silent for a moment, then her lips curved into a small smile. "Yeah, I know." She took a few more steps, then stopped and turned back to him. There was a small, genuine smile on her face, one that didn't try too hard. "Tonight, if you're not busy, come by my house," she said. "My parents are throwing a small dinner. Think of it as a thank you for listening and for being there." Jungkook looked surprised, his eyebrows lifted before easing again. He looked at her for a moment, as if making sure he'd heard right. Yin nodded, reassuring him. "Yeah," Jungkook said, smiling a little wider. "I'll come." "Good." Yin adjusted his jacket on her shoulders. "See you later, Jungkook." "See you later," he replied. Yin walked toward the parking lot, her steps no longer hesitant. At the end of the corridor, she turned once more. Jungkook was still standing there, watching her, not as a troublemaker or a nuisance, but as someone who'd finally learned how to be there without causing pain. And somehow, the evening felt a little lighter for both of them. That night, the house was softly lit, warm and golden. As Yin descended the stairs, the doorbell rang. A maid hurried to answer it, and there stood Jungkook, charming, with a gentle smile on his face. "Jungkook," Yin called out, smiling instantly as she approached him. "Hey, come in." "Thanks," he said quietly. At the dinner table, Yin's parents didn't look surprised. She'd already told them everything, about what happened at campus, about her friends, and about Jungkook being there for her. "Please, sit down, Jungkook," her father greeted warmly. "We're really glad you could join us." "Thank you, sir," ma'am, Jungkook replied politely. Dinner was elegant but homey, with warm soup, roast chicken, stir-fried vegetables, and a small strawberry pudding for dessert. The conversation flowed easily. College life, Yin's next semester plans, her mom's stories about her favorite flower shop. Halfway through dinner, Yin's father looked at Jungkook. Thank you for taking care of Yin today. Jungkook glanced briefly at Yin before smiling. I just did what anyone should do, sir. The atmosphere was cozy, with light laughter, the clink of plates and glasses. Yin caught herself smiling more than once. The room that usually only echoed her parents' voices now felt fuller, livelier, maybe because Jungkook was there. After dinner, Yin invited Jungkook for a walk in the garden. The path lights glowed softly against the pebbles, and the air carried the faint scent of rose. Thanks for coming, Yin said, looking up at him with a gentle smile. Dinner felt so much livelier with you here. Jungkook chuckled. I'm just glad you're feeling better. They walked slowly side by side. So, what's next for you? He asked carefully. You still planning to stay friends with those three? Yin shook her head firmly. No, they didn't even look sorry. I'm done with that. Jungkook nodded in agreement. Good, you deserve people who actually care. Yin sighed softly. Do you think I was wrong for being angry earlier? Jungkook looked at her, his tone calm and thoughtful. It's not just about today. I've noticed for a while now that your friendship didn't seem healthy. You were always the one paying, always preparing gifts, doing assignments, fixing everything. They relied on you, but they didn't really appreciate you. Yin's eyes widened. You thought that too? He nodded. Back in high school, I had friends like that. They were loud when they needed me, but quiet when I needed them. So now, I'd rather have fewer friends, but real ones. Something tugged at Yin's heart. I'm sorry, Jungkook, for what I said 3 weeks ago. I was harsh. It's okay, he said softly, eyes warm. I get it. Yin looked up at him, voice barely above a whisper. You really noticed all that? Even about my friendships? Jungkook paused, a faint smile on his lips. Why do you think I kept teasing you? Why did I always try to get your attention? Yin froze. What do you mean? Her voice was small. Their eyes met, closer now, heavier with meaning. Jungkook took a slow breath. Yin, I love you. The words fell quietly, but firmly. Yin's heart stuttered. He continued, honest and steady. I teased you because I wanted you to notice me, but I was too much of a coward to actually confess. I was scared you'd reject me. I tried to hold back when you got mad, but seeing you hurt today, I just couldn't stay quiet anymore. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box, holding it out to her. Happy birthday. With trembling hands, Yin took the box and slowly opened it. Inside was a delicate white necklace with a heart-shaped pendant that shimmered beautifully under the light. It's beautiful, she whispered, eyes shimmering. Thank you. Can I put it on for you? Jungkook asked softly. Yin nodded quickly, turning around and lifting her hair. His fingers worked carefully at the clasp behind her neck, gentle and sure. The brief touch made time slow down. Perfect, Jungkook murmured. Yin turned to face him again. The pendant caught the garden light, glinting like a tiny star against her skin. Jungkook looked at her, this time with nothing to hide behind. So, he said quietly, voice a little shaky, will you accept how I feel? Yin let out a breath. She didn't realize she was holding. A small, genuine smile curved her lips. I will. Jungkook blinked as if to make sure he'd heard right. There's no reason to say no, Yin continued softly. When you said all that earlier, I don't know, it made me happy, and I know now that you really care. Jungkook laughed quietly, part relief, part disbelief, and looked down, trying to hide the moisture in his eyes. Thank you. The night felt warmer than before. They kept walking, a little closer this time. Yin's fingers brushed the back of his hand. Jungkook gently took it, light, careful. Happy birthday, he whispered near her ear. His tone was soft, deeper this time. Then, before stepping back, he pressed a gentle kiss to her right cheek. Yin blushed hard. Thank you for everything, she said, smiling shyly. Under the glow of the garden lights and the scent of rose, they walked side by side, no longer the girl he teased and the boy who annoyed her, but two people finally learning how to care, honestly and without fear. The next morning, the campus felt a little different. Sunlight hit the glass buildings, bouncing off the hallways, and rumors spread faster than the morning bell. Yin walked side by side with Jungkook down the main corridor. The small heart-shaped necklace around her neck glinted every time she turned her head, while Jungkook's jacket, folded neatly, rested over her arm. Dalmi caught up to them from behind and quickly walked closer to Yin. You okay? Dalmi asked, her face showing a hint of concern. I'm fine, Yin said with a small smile. Everything's good now. At the end of the hallway, Hannah, flanked by Nari and Minji, suddenly stopped in her tracks. Their expressions were a mix of shock and disbelief. A few other students slowed down too, glancing and whispering to one another. "Are you kidding me?" Nari muttered, half covering her mouth. "She moved on fast," Minji whispered, eyes narrowing. Hannah took 2 steps closer. "Yin," she greeted briefly, not warm, not friendly, just a cold imitation of politeness. "Can we talk for a sec?" Yin looked at her calmly. "I'm busy," she said flatly. "If it's important, just email me." Hannah paused for a second, then gave a thin smile. "You were so dramatic yesterday. It was just a joke." Yin raised an eyebrow, her tone steady. "If humiliating someone counts as a joke to you, then your definition of humor is way different from mine." Nari folded her arms. "You've changed." "I just set boundaries," Yin replied. "And just so we're clear, you're not my friends anymore. Don't pretend you forgot." Minji scoffed quietly. "Fine, if that's what you want." Jungkook didn't say anything. He stood half a step behind Yin, close enough to show support, far enough to give her space. Dalmi was right beside Yin, calm but clearly on her side. "Excuse us," Yin said, closing the conversation. She walked past them without another glance, Jungkook and Dalmi following right behind her. In class, the change was obvious. The seat Yin once occupied in the middle of Hannah, Minji, and Nari's circle had now moved to the right row. Jungkook sat behind her with Yoonwoo, not to tease her this time, just to be there, and Dalmi sat right beside Yin. Out of the corner of her eye, Yin could still see Minji. Hannah and Nari were watching her from a distance, but she didn't care. She had Jungkook, Yoonwoo, and Dalmi now, her new genuine circle of friends.